Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Cosmic Culture, the channel where we talk all things major movie and television news, theories, breakdowns, and much, much more. I'm your host Chris, and today we have some words from Natalie Portman, who was interviewed for the D23 magazine as they're gearing up and preparing for an awesome event in September, which will have Disney Plus Day and the D23 Expo grouped together for a fantastic representation of the future of Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic, all of the different franchises that fall under the umbrella of Disney. Well, during this interview for the D23 magazine, Natalie Portman started talking about Thor: Love and Thunder, which is coming out very, very soon. And if you are at all familiar with the mighty Thor, which of course is Lady Thor, Jane Foster, Natalie Portman, a very exciting introduction and inclusion in Thor: Love and Thunder, which we should all be pretty excited for. Well, she was talking in this interview, and we have a very, very good idea, even more so now than we already did, of what exactly we should be expecting in her origin, and a few other twists that they've added to Thor: Love and Thunder. So we're going to talk about Lady Thor, her cancer, and what everybody else is going to know about this. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our major movie and television news updates. You can also follow me on my other socials, Instagram at Chris M. Rosser and Twitter at TheCultureChris. Links to both are in the description down below. So, let's start off with one of her first quotes where she's talking about her excitement for joining back with Chris Hemsworth, Taika Waititi, and the newly introduced Tessa Thompson from Thor Ragnarok. She was asked about how she was as far as excitement levels goes to be rejoining Thor and the crew, and she said, "I was so excited by what Taika Waititi, Chris Hemsworth, and Tessa Thompson did in Ragnarok. It just makes you smile the whole time. Love and Thunder seemed like a great opportunity to revisit the character and see her expand as a superhero herself." Now, this is something that I think came to a surprise for a lot of people, as it seemed like maybe Natalie Portman's character, Jane Foster's storyline, had ended. They broke up after being together, they had this cool romantic story. This entire franchise of Thor seemed to have gone in a different direction where, yeah, he was a little heartbroken, but he'll find his own love interest later. And then we get the announcement at San Diego Comic-Con that Jane Foster will be coming back, and she's going to have Mjolnir, as Taika Waititi himself during the event brought Mjolnir out to her, and she wielded it there on stage. So, of course, we start talking, well, what's the storyline we're going to be getting? How is she going to become Thor? This is kind of crazy. What are the odds? Are they back together? Millions and millions and millions of questions that hopefully in Thor: Love and Thunder we will have answers to the majority of. However, for now, we can talk about the answers to a few of them. If you stick around through the end of the video, I'm going to cover a recent leak that talks about where she got Mjolnir from, how that has all worked out. I'm also going to talk about what she says in this magazine specifically about her character and why it is so important that she is the mighty Thor. So let's jump into it. I want to start off with this leak that came out that talks about where Mjolnir was recovered from and how has it ended up in the hands of Jane Foster, working and fixed. And the explanation for mighty Thor goes as follows. While visiting the broken pieces of Mjolnir in New Asgard, Jane Foster's life is forever changed when she mysteriously transformed into the mighty Thor. Now armed with Mjolnir and the power of Thor herself, Jane embraces her new life as a godly protector. Soon, a dark force brings the mighty Thor and her ex-boyfriend Thor together. As the two heroes reconcile their path, the mighty Thor and Thor must join forces in the fight to stop a cosmic threat from eradicating the gods. Now, we know that threat is Gore, and we know that Jane and Thor are going to be fighting side by side and potentially re-spark some dying embers of their love. However, it sounds like she went to visit Mjolnir in New Asgard. So there are a few ways that this could lead to her now wielding the hammer. First and foremost, we know from the trailers, from leaked scenes, from Lego sets, from set photos, it's not a question, New Asgard is a massive tourist site. In the trailers alone, we see cruise ships rolling up, we can see signs that say tours here at New Asgard, all sorts of things going on. We know that the location where New Asgard is currently found is the same place where Hela broke Mjolnir. That's where they were chatting with Odin prior to him passing on, moving away, turning into bits of dust into the atmosphere and the universe. Then Hela showed up and Mjolnir was broken and left in the ground. this is where New Asgard is. So either A, they built a little shrine around where the pieces were, or they were able to pick up and move the pieces somewhere, and it is part of a museum exhibit, maybe even one of the founding pieces of the tourism. People might have come from all over in order to see Mjolnir, the mighty weapon of the god Thor. Now, obviously, Jane had a vested interest in Thor. She knew who he was, she knew the hammer, she's had the very hammer in her apartment. This is a part of her life. So, out of curiosity, could have gone to New Asgard in order to find out what exactly is going on, and the hammer recognized her, or the hammer recognized her soul, and that she was a good person, and it responded to her, and it mended and healed itself to the best of its ability in order to be wielded by her. Now, you would wonder why. What exactly does Mjolnir want with her? It didn't mend itself. It wasn't healed for Thor to use it. In fact, Thor is all but sure that it's completely unusable. Well, that's what brings us to the next part of this discussion, and that is what she has to say about the comic origins for the character. She says, Thor is confused at first. He soon sees her as a teammate rather than as competition. She continues, Jane is secretly struggling with a terrible hardship, and she's able to conceal it as long as she is wielding Mjolnir. So she's keeping her cancer, which is the secret, away from Thor. Thor is not aware that she has cancer, or at least won't be at first for the beginning duration of the film. I'm sure at some point it will be revealed, and a big decision's going to have to be made, whether we go with the route of Thor steps down and gives all of his powers to Jane in order to keep her alive, or whether or not it's as simple as she just needs to keep Mjolnir and she can be fine, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The ending of the film will end with Thor knowing, and if we're very, very lucky, I would say, we would see Thor and Jane remaining together, both as superheroes, continuing the Thor storyline hand in hand. Now, what are we talking about? What is the secret? Well, it's cancer. Now, in the comic origin for the mighty Thor, Jane gets cancer, but she's also found worthy to use Mjolnir, and she does. She wields it and she moves forward with the powers of Thor. Now, while she's undergoing chemo, trying to cure herself of the cancer, she also is becoming Thor, becoming Lady Thor. And as she does this, she's healed from her cancer momentarily, but the chemo is also eradicated from her body. So she feels really great while she's Thor, however steps backwards in her treatment while she does it. So it's kind of killing her to be Thor, but helping her to be Thor. It's a real mixed bag of issues. I'm not sure if they're going to go with the is clearing out your chemo route, or whether she's only going to be strong while she has the hammer, and as the hammer's in her hand, she will not feel the weakness that's coming to her from A, the chemo, and B, the cancer. And I don't know that we'll be seeing Mjolnir cure her, but if she remains Lady Thor, we might be seeing a stronger Jane, somebody who can survive. That seems to be the big storyline. They are following that from the comics. There will be changes to that, so if you've read the comic and you're familiar with it, don't think, well, I know all the answers, because it's very likely that Taika Waititi will be changing a lot of those details, as they often do over at Marvel Studios. They get inspiration from the comics, and then they retcon and change and create their own story so that we can get an adaptation for the live action storyline. As also we've said, in the trailers, we've seen that Thor and Jane are getting closer, that maybe even at one point they're holding hands. Thor will eventually learn that she has cancer, and hopefully this can end on a happy note. Not her sacrificing herself, not him sacrificing himself, and maybe we can get some more information about how Mjolnir came to be. Well, of course we're going to get more information. Whether she went and found it from the energy signals that reminded her of Thor, because she was chasing him down, or whether or not it was in a museum and it summoned itself to her, she will end up with Mjolnir, and it's going to be an absolute blast. I'm super excited for Thor Love and Thunder. I think we're going to get a lot of new Marvel feels, as well as a lot of classic pre-Infinity War, good feelings, Easter eggs, references, all the good stuff that I'm hoping to see from Marvel. I really, really am hoping for a fun film. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section down below. I know a lot of it isn't necessarily news, as we all know the storyline, we all know the comic book. However, to get that little leak about how she ends up with Mjolnir, and tying that in with what she's recently said now at the D23 magazine that they've been putting together, it's super, super exciting and getting me excited for a film that will be coming out very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching to the very end of the video. If you found it helpful, useful, or interesting, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell. And I'll catch you all in the next one right here on Cosmic Culture.